Hey, welcome everybody to the pilot episode of Tales from the Post. I'm your host Shaggy, and we got Master Sergeant Paul Manrique in the studio today. U.S. Air Force retired. What's up, man?
Not much. Kind of tired, working hard today. So. Is that what you're working on? Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do stuff around the house, build stuff for my wife's business, just storage and stuff because I kind of took over half her space here. So,
Well,
but what'd you do today?
swap stuff around. Garage to the shed, back.
Honeydew.
It's gonna work out though, because wife gets the garage, no AC. We're in Florida. It's 95 degrees.
Yeah.
99. She likes the heat. I don't, so I get the shed with the air conditioner.
Isn't it weird that you have a detached shed that has AC and the garage, which is attached to the house, does not?
But I also have water and electricity in there too.
In the shed?
I have a water line that goes out there, so I have a sink to wash my hands.
So, say one of your kids won't move out of the house, kick their ass out to the shed, install a toilet.
I have one in mind.
He's not behind the camera or anything.
It might work better. So what's going on, Shaggy?
Nothing much, man. We figured we'd bring you in here, have you tell your story of like any cool shit from basic, units, deployments, general shenanigans, military fuckery.
I'll try and keep it brief because after 20 years, I can probably tell hours and hours.
This video would be 8 hours. I don't think it would be able to handle the transfer between my phone to the computer. Every hour would be like a day of me editing. So, where I just locked myself in my room, no food or water, coming out looking like Gollum.
Or Beavis. From the old days, Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. They brought him back.
Y'all high on caffeine.
They brought him back.
Really?
Yeah. It's I can't remember what it's called because if you go pull it up, I can't remember what it's on a streaming service. I think it's Paramount Plus, but they have the old episodes, and then they have the movies, and then they have the new Beavis and Butthead that takes place after the second Beavis and Butthead movie. So they have Beavis and Butthead Do America, which came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
Then Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. The new episodes take place after Do the Universe because it took them from like the 80s and 90s and put them in modern day.
Oh my.
Yeah. It's just like old Beavis and Butthead too.
Man.
Shitting on music videos. Damn, we got sidetracked fast.
Yeah, that's all right.
So you're Air Force. So all y'all went to one basic?
One basic. Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. It was all right. The first week is getting used to it, being military life, even though it's like to the extreme.
Yeah, it's not a job. It's like, hey, now someone tells me when I can go poo.
Yeah.
And someone can tell me when I can go to sleep and go eat.
Shaving sucked. I don't know if it was for Army.
Yes, it did.
But like in basic, you always felt the need to like do everything in 5 seconds, at least for us. And so shaving, it was like, shit, I'm all cut up. This sucks, because you have, at least for us, we had 25 to 30 men in a flight that were all together for all of basic. And we had 4 sinks. We had 4 toilets.
Oh.
And so trying to get 30 people through that in, I don't know how much time they gave us, 10 minutes. They'll wake us up, shower, go down, go do PT every morning. Guess that's kind of a semblance of Army life too.
Yeah, ours is kind of like that, but doubled. So our bays held 60 people. It was all bunk beds.
Dang.
But it was, I want to say we had 8 sinks too. So it was like literally double. But we only had, in my basic, we only had like 52 or 54 people. Yeah. So there was like 3 bunk beds that went
like 25 or 30. And then...
And that's per platoon.
Yeah, after PT, we'd go shower. Then we'd go to eat breakfast, which was whatever they had, they put it on the plate, and you just walked through, and you had like 5 minutes to eat. You sit down and
Oh shit!
look, and
Yeah.
you didn't even want, but you didn't want to be there that long.
Yeah. Well, the drill sergeant said if you can taste it, you're eating too slow. So we couldn't say, oh, this food's great or bad. And we only had water or Powerade for
Yep.
drinks. Their sodas were there, but we couldn't get them. And then if you were the last guy in line, you were fucked because the moment you sat down, that was the real timer. Because if you're first, it's like, okay,
Ours was 4 people to a table. First person sits down, last person sits down. You get a couple minutes, and then that whole table gets up, and you go, and they shuffle through real fast. You don't talk
yep.
because if you talk, because we had the end of the chow hall or the dining facility was, we called it the snake pit, which was all the MTIs, all the drill sergeants would be sitting there watching you.
Okay.
And if you looked up and eyeballed them, you had to get up. They would call you out, get up, you had to go to the table, reporting statement, and they'd chew your ass out. And,
Get smoked.
yeah. Do push-ups right there in front, whatever, and then go back. And usually by the time you got back, everybody from your table was gone that left your tray, and you had to go take it, and then you got smoked again outside because you fucked up the second time. So that basic, all the meals, yeah. But that's part of why a lot of people, lose like 20, 25 pounds in basic, because for one, you don't eat.
And you're getting the shit smoked out of you all the time.
And yeah.
Making the wall sweat. It's like you touch the wall and there's just precipitation on it.
But I mean, about the time, the only good parts was like sitting in class, because we had to learn about the Air Force history and learn about Air Force structure and
I learned about
who was in charge. And
so I learned like the Army Creed and the Soldier Creed stuff from the front leaning rest position. So
that's nice.
Not a lot of death by PowerPoint stuff, but that was Benning back in 08. Yeah, because I left at the beginning of 08. So yeah, it was just, all male basic at the time. I don't know if it's integrated now, and it's not even Benning anymore. It's now Fort Moore. Yeah, I learned a lot of shit from the front leaning rest position, like a lot of degrading comments about my mother, grandmother, even my dad. Yeah, like the drill sergeant telling me that my mom would have been better off swallowing me,
or your dad pulling out,
or my drill sergeant may have been my father because my mother was a lady of the night. Just general stuff like that, very uplifting comments to really hammer the point home.
It's to break you down so they can build you back up again by the end of basic. And being like, whoa, ultra confident and ready to go fight the world when you graduate. But basically, it was that way. Last week wasn't too bad.
Yeah, you hated it at the beginning.
You hated it at the beginning, but we had Warrior Week at the end, so we got to go.
Warrior Week, what's that?
That's where we got to do obstacle course. We didn't have a confidence course. It was just an obstacle course. We did that twice. Don't
do the towers? Like where you rappel down and stuff? Mm-hmm. No.
We did gas chamber.
Oh yeah.
and then we did kind of like as much as we could do like a forest survival, navigation type thing. In
like land basic,
kind of, but you're in Florida or in Texas where there's not many trees and
say, hey, there's our next point stuck to a cactus.
Yeah, in Warrior Week it was all right, but now they do like a whole, or at least before I retired in 2013, they were telling me they added a whole extra week, and you got a rubber gun that you had to carry around with you, and you slept outside and then ate MREs.
Y'all didn't have the standard issue stuff, like, because we had to carry our, it was the M16 A2s. The only time we would not have them was whenever we were sleeping. We'd put them they brought in the racks to hang our rifle stuff in. Besides that, we had them with us damn near all the time, except during PT.
No, the only thing, okay, so You can make fun of this, but in the Air Force, the only thing we carried around with us normally was a brown bag that had our Air Force manual in it that we had to study. That was it.
Your waiter's bell?
Sure, why not? But it was just a brown zip bag that we had to take with us. No rucksack, no backpack, none of that.
Well, our basics were also in very different time frames. I went through basic in 08. You went through
93.
93. So you're looking at, what, 15 years difference?
Yeah, pretty close.
And then obviously 2 different branches.
Yeah, Air Force was easy. I mean, it's always been easier.
So if you're not familiar with the military, we all shit on each other out of respect, except the Coast Guard, because
they're not part of the military.
No, they're part
only times of war.
Yeah, they're a part of the Department of Homeland Security as of recording this. So, but they're kind of like an adopted sibling.
We'll let them play a few games with us.
I got a Coast Guard buddy who's probably going to watch this. Chris, if you're watching this, that one's for you, buddy.
But then, I mean, you graduate, you feel good about yourself, go to tech school, which I guess is like career, whatever your career field school is.
Yeah, it's like your profession.
Yeah.
Yeah, we called it AIT.
Mine was in San Angelo, Texas. So I actually had to get on a Greyhound bus at basic when I graduated, go 3 hours up the road to San Angelo. They call them MTMs, or military training managers. It was kind of like a drill instructor, but at tech school, and they were more chilled.
They were doing something like that for us, where at our AIT, so basic, we had 4 platoons. Each platoon had 3 drill sergeants. We obviously had a first sergeant and a commander, which was a first sergeant and a captain. But whenever we left basic going to AIT, the whole company only had 1 drill sergeant. Everybody else became like just a trainer. I can't even remember the thing they.
Yeah, I mean, we had instructor. Like the people that taught us our career field. We had instructors, but just basic, like doing room inspections and doing our PT and stuff. We had an MTM, and we had which was usually a tech sergeant, and then or an E6, and then they had a couple of assistants that were E4s that were all permanent party at that base.
For those that are lost, I'll put it somewhere around here.
But
so you'll be able to understand. You'll be in the in group. A lot of these inside jokes you'll get later. It's just right now at filming, there's no one putting shit up.
Yeah, but it was kind of to get us ready for when we got out and had our job, out in the field, where you had like your OpCon or your operational command or control, and your TACON, your tactical command. So our tactical command was more of our instructors at school. Really, that's why we were there. We were to learn everything. Our OpCon was more the drill instructor, that MTM, to take care of, like our admin type stuff that we had to take care of. If we had to go see personnel, or if we had to do finance, or if we had to go do a medical appointment or dental appointment, we reported to them, not our instructors. So it's a different. Is it on?
Yeah, I'm just making sure. So y'all don't know this because this will be the first published. We've had to reshoot this bitch multiple times because I'm an idiot. It's like, okay, mics are charged. The damn dongle wasn't. The dongle, funny word, but it plugs into the camera. And then sound issues, duration issues, content issues. It's been a mess. So I'm a little off my game.
We're learning.
Yeah. This is the pilot episode, so there's a lot of fuckery that goes on backstage and behind the scenes that maybe one day, if this becomes popular, I'll put one out just to see, y'all can see the fuckery. I'll even show where I had to build this bitch by my hands. But
tech school for me was probably very different than school for you, because we've talked about how
you made fun of me for my training.
But like mine, we lived in a dorm. I had a roommate. We had dorm inspections every other day to make sure everything was clean and nothing smelled and no hair in the drain.
The wax is scuffed. You better fix it.
All that BS. And you had to take the trash out every day or every morning because if there's trash, you got smoked again. And ours was paperwork. We would get paperwork for it. But at school, once we got to school, we were sitting in a classroom learning about everything. I mean, I felt like I was in college again, kind of, except for we were in uniform, and but once we got into the school, we didn't have to sit at attention. We didn't have to stand, any certain way or whatever. It was school.
So 2 things. What was your tech school for? Like, what was your job? And then how long was the tech school?
So my tech school was 6 months.
Fuck that.
Which is the second from back in the 90s. It was the second longest tech school. The longest tech school was cryptological linguists, which are the guys that listen to other countries and people talking in their languages.
Didn't Johnny Cash do that?
I'm not sure.
I remember.
I can't confirm.
It was probably bullshit. I think it was on Facebook or something. But it was like Johnny Cash was like one of the first people to find out some major historical event. It may have been like Hitler shot himself or something.
Oh.
But it was something along those lines because he was the first like English speaking person to receive the transmission or something.
But they go to the Defense Language Institute or DLI in Monterey, California for a year to learn their language. And then they come to Goodfellow Air Force Base in Texas to learn the intel side of everything. So they're there for 6 months like we are. And we're learning everything from how the intelligence structure, United States intelligence structure works, all the way from me, the analyst, all the way up to the DNI or the defense or the director of national intelligence, sitting in DC, how POTUS, the president of the United States, uses all that information, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and we learn all that structure. But we're also, it progresses to where we learn how to analyze information, how to read reports, how to look at imagery. We weren't imagery interpreters, but to read and look at imagery to be able to...
Like topographical maps?
No, like satellite imagery. We learned topographical maps too, like, I can't think of the names of them. ONCs are like the really large scale ones. TPCs, the tactical aerial charts, but
I kind of shammed through the land nav part because we had to. So we had every platoon had what we called a house mouse, which was like the paperwork bitch for the drill sergeants.
We call them that too.
And then we had like a platoon sergeant type setup where they had put like a Velcro version of like the sergeant first class rank or staff sergeant rank. He was a recycle. Like I can't remember his whole story, but it was like he graduated and everything, went to AIT, was talking shit and the lieutenant colonel was like, well, apparently you missed out on the basics and sent him back to basic. So he was in charge and kind of led us all through the land nav stuff because he had already done the points.
Nice.
So all I had to do was, we had the green L-shaped lights with the red lenses in them.
Okay.
All I had to do was follow him around with those. Like, don't step on shit in the woods.
But we went through learning how to maps, all that stuff. We were also learning enemy equipment. So we learned a lot about Russian tanks and APCs, and this was back in the 90s, so we still had T-55s, 65s, T-72s.
Well, I mean, the Cold War, the wall came down in what year was it? I know it was early 90s.
I thought it was like 87, 88.
When the walls were actually torn down?
I think so.
I thought it was... Well, I mean, this was under Reagan. Reagan left in, 92? So Clinton would have been 93 on. So, yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Clinton was way later than that.
No, Clinton did 8 years. Bush took over in, 2000? Because the next year was not 2001. Whenever
Clinton wasn't in the 80s. He was in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm saying, no, Reagan was in the 80s.
Reagan was from 1980 to 1988. Because he did 2 terms. And then...
I thought Clinton came in 92. Because what year?
There was somebody else in between.
Jimmy Carter?
Carter was before him. He was in the 70s. Okay, my brain's dead. I don't know.
I'll put that
Anyway.
shit up there.
But we learned all about Russian equipment, airplanes, how airplanes fly, the basics of it, radars, weapons coming off of,
Please continue.
air to air weapons, air to surface weapons, bombs, guided bombs, all that, what the Russians use, what we use, so that we could use that in our analysis. And then the final 2 weeks was us simulating working in an air operations center where we had to read message traffic, we had to update display boards of these surface air missiles are here, this is here, how things were moving around, and our instructors would come in, sit down, first pretend to be a pilot just getting off mission. We had to do a debrief with them and be like, hey sir, what happened? What did you see? Oh, this should have been in this area. And do a debriefing with him. And then he would walk out, change his jacket, come back in, and then we had to sit there and tell him exactly what's going on in the thing. So he was more like a squadron commander.
So it's like he told you everything, and at that point it was to just repeat back almost verbatim what he told you.
Right, and that's a lot of what our job was as an all-source analyst, was work with the squadrons, take that information, figure out what's going on the board based off of what he's told us, and then come up with a briefing to send it up the chain, to like an 06 or a 1-star. And so they taught us how to do that.
So you were playing like
wargaming.
Well, like a game of telephone, but if you fuck up, lives could be lost.
Yep.
That, just to break it down simple for our 12 fans.
So I graduated tech school, went to Langley Air Force Base. Well, you normally are like, Langley, that's like CIA.
Yeah. I'm trying not to get a hit put on me. Langley's great.
Well, they are both in Virginia. I think I went to the one in Hampton Roads down in Chesapeake Bay area, or the 1st Fighter Wing Air Combat Command. That's there. The one you're thinking of is further up the road by a couple hours out in the middle of nowhere.
The one that disappears people and establishes governments and foreign nations. And maybe take out content creators that is small enough to where no one would really notice. They're great. I have no problem with the CIA whatsoever. Please don't kill me.
Being an intel guy, I only had contact with them a couple times when I was deployed, and it was more of them going, "Don't pay attention to those 2 guys that just walked in and walked behind the black curtain. We don't know what they do." And we're like, "What?" And it's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." Okay. And they might slip a paper to you every now and then, and you gotta brief the colonel on it, but you don't know where it came from. Okay.
Your job was intel.
Exactly.
You're bound to run into
all kinds of stuff.
Not just famous people, but people that would be famous if the things they did came to light, if it wasn't intentionally kept behind that black curtain. I know where Jimmy Hoffa's at. Like, oh shit!
So speaking of that, I'm going to jump a
Jimmy
little.
Hoffa or the
no?
Do you know where Jimmy Hoffa's at?
Talking to people that are doing something other than what they're telling you. Something like a black ops or something CIA, something way higher security clearance than what you have, or at least because I had a top secret what they call SCI, or special compartmented information. So it'd be, different code word stuff. And I even felt intimidated when I'd be around certain people, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm not cleared for that.
I can foresee a lot of editing for classified information.
I haven't said nothing classified yet. But I wanted to ask you a question. If you've ever been approached for a job and they tell you, you'll love this job, I can't tell you anything about it, I can't tell you where it's at, I can't tell you the security clearance that you'll need for it, but it's higher than what you currently have. And if you come here, we'll set you all up. Oh, and by the way, you'll be working 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and you only see your wife probably a couple hours every day, except for Saturday and Sunday. And I went, have you ever been in that situation?
I was a truck driver. There's not a lot of it's fine. We'll just keep rolling, because if we cut it and we start going into funny shit, we're gonna kick ourselves in the ass. We're like, damn it. I'm trying to do a little editing as this is possible for my mental health. No, I was a truck driver, man. Like, I dealt with, ammunition, all sorts of ordinances, like the plates on the side of tanks, the counter explosive stuff. Yeah. I mean, I dealt with that stuff. I watched TA-50. TA-50 is just like military gear that is not your clothing. It's like accessories, like ponchos and backpacks, for the layman's terms, where we called it like Molly gear.
Rucksacks.
Yep, rucksacks. Stuff like that. I mean, I dealt with a lot of that stuff.
No, I got an email when I was at Offutt or Omaha.
They don't make movies about truckers like that, unless you want to count the one with Sylvester Stallone, where it's more about arm wrestling than trucking.
That was a good movie.
It was. A dad doing everything for a son.
But, so in this, I got an email saying, hey, give me a call if you want a job. And I kind of went, I already got a job. I'm in the Air Force. I'm at Offutt. I'm doing good. So I called it. Yeah, hey. So I called it. He's like, yep, I'm out in Vegas, but we don't work at Nellis. We work at another installation. I was like, well, like north of it? He goes, I can't tell you.
Let's see. What else is in Nevada?
Well, before,
that's a top secret. Can't talk about it.
It's not Tonopah or Area 51. But at the time, Creech Air Force Base, which is north of Las Vegas and north of Nellis, was standing up, and it wasn't a public knowledge base. It is now, because that's where they have a lot of the Predator pilots, a lot of the drones that go up, UAVs. That's where they pilot them out of there, and that's public knowledge now. But then he's like, "Yep, you get on a bus at Nellis, you drop, they take you an hour up, get off, you do 12-hour shift, bring you back." And you can't talk about my job. I'm like, so what am I going to be doing? He's like, I can't tell you. I'm like, is it cool? Is it a good job? And he's like, yeah, it's probably the best thing you'll ever do in your career. And I'm like, sounds good, but tell me something. I wanted something. And he's like, I can't. And I go, okay, because in the Air Force, a lot of times if you're married and whatever, it's like, well, okay, am I going to have to go deploy? And he's like, well, it's a 3-year controlled tour here, and no, you don't deploy. I said, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
He goes, but you go TDY a lot. And I'm like, how often? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm almost at the end of my 3 years, and I've pretty much been gone 2 years. And I'm like, well, that sucks. That's not much of a home life.
That is some CIA shit. They were probably doing gangster shit.
Probably. But I never found out what it was. I mean, later on when they opened up Creech and said what it is, it was probably working with, the development of predators and that kind of stuff.
This was while you were intel, or they tried to come to you whenever you were targeteer?
Intel. No, I've always been. So being a targeteer is in the intelligence career field.
Oh.
So it's in that intelligence umbrella.
Well, that one is definitely way more intriguing. It's like, I'm going to pick people or places to fucking delete. Like, you're on your computer, you hit Control-Alt-Delete, and they know what it means. It's like, yeah, that whole grid square, gone. I don't want to see that grid square anymore.
But that was my third duty assignment. First one was at Langley. Worked with U-2s. Being a young airman, thought that was pretty cool. It's considered a spy plane. It's flying really high up in the stratosphere up there. And
well, did you ever work with like the Blackbirds?
Mm-mm. They were out of service. They were mothballed before I even
got in,
yeah.
In the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
The
That's what I
SR
knew. The
SR
SR-71.
71s.
Yeah.
Damn, I thought those were actually still in use.
Coolest thing about that airplane is it was engineered to the panels to have gaps in it
Yeah,
and all the
so
fittings. So when it took off, I mean, it's just dumping fuel, dumping fuel, dumping fuel. And as soon as it gets up to
everything's sealed.
well, as soon as it gets up to altitude, it has to be refueled. So they always have a tanker up there for it. They refuel it, and then once it gets up to speed, everything. What a
I
to
thought
me that blows my mind. To
I thought that
try
was
to
the
engineer that.
Dorito.
The what?
I thought that was the Dorito one, the black one that looks like a triangle, not the SR-71. The SR-71 was looked more like a phallus.
It did, but no, the F-117. It didn't fly that fast.
Which is the one I'm thinking of, the black Dorito.
That's probably the F-117. It looked like a Dorito. Looked like a triangle.
Yeah, and a little bit like serrated.
Jagged. But no, the SR-71
Did the same thing
Well,
because they both leaked on the ground, like they were built.
so the
to stand-
F-117 didn't because it didn't fly that fast. I mean, it might go Mach 1, Mach 1, 1.5. But like the SR-71 was built to go way faster than that and way higher. And because of the altitudes and the speed, the panels would actually come together and seal everything.
It was
So-
way better in being utilized instead of
Yeah.
sitting there.
Anyway.
It was meant to be rode hard.
Anyway, so yeah, I deployed with them 3 times. Once to Riyadh, where I got to drive a rental car around Saudi Arabia and go see monkeys out in the desert.
What?
So there's wild monkeys just south of where we live. They lived in kind of the mountains, the hills, and we would take bananas from the chaha, and we'd go out there and we'd throw the bananas at the monkeys, and no monkeys ever got hurt, but they would pick them up and eat the bananas, and it was like
A desert is not what I would picture whenever someone asks me where do monkeys live. Because I'm thinking tropical paradises that have banana trees for one.
you know,
You're telling me Saudi Arabia, the land of sand, has where the
Wild
fuck do they
monkeys.
live at?
in caves.
In okay, so they're like prehistoric humans.
I don't know.
That's the missing link. It's in Saudi Arabia.
But it was pretty cool. Worked with a bunch of different countries there. Came home, went back a year later. Lived in Kobar Towers. Worked with
The one that got blown up?
I
or
left
the one that
5
got
days
attacked?
before it.
5 days.
5 days before.
So you were almost there for the attack on Kobar.
Scary thing was, we used to run the perimeter of our compound,
Okay.
and
The inside or outside of the gate?
on the inside, they
Okay.
wouldn't let us out. We had to. If we went out, we had to be in a vehicle. But we would run the perimeter and walk it, and we were always getting lit up with red laser sights. And we're like, but our security forces always went and checked them out because they were from the apartment buildings around the compound. Not a very good design of a secure compound to live in because
Have you ever
We're
seen
the-
Ramadi?
no, but we're in the middle of a city, and there's buildings taller than us all the way around us, and we're like, okay, but we're always getting lit up, but nobody ever got shot. No, nothing, no violence ever happened until a water truck parked in the corner on the outside of the compound, parked right up next to the fence, and then went off, and one of our buildings, the whole front facade, fell and created a pretty big crater, and 19 airmen died that day. But,
Damn.
yeah. But the day I left, and I have a picture, I don't know where it is, but I have a picture standing on top of that building.
Before or after?
Before. Because
Well, yeah, you left 5 days prior.
Yeah.
I'm a dumbass.
but you could see the Persian Gulf from that building. So everybody would take a picture on top of the building so they could be like, yeah, I saw the Persian Gulf, and then go.
So, talking about that, Ramadi. Ramadi is west of Baghdad in Iraq. I think it's actually southwest. It's like over by Fallujah and Al Taqadim. Ramadi, from my understanding, because I was there 2009 to 10, Ramadi was a Marine base that had gotten, they handed it over to, I want to say 82nd. Not 100% sure about that, but I think it was 82nd. We used to deliver to them. There's an overpass right there, and they would get up there and just RPG the base because it was built right there. Like, I actually think the overpass was in the middle of Ramadi, or our fob or camp base, whatever you want to call it. Like, it was dumb. Whoever took that spot to hold it, I mean, take out the overpass. We can take the back roads. We have other vehicles that can do off-roading, like the M1120s. I'll put a picture of that up here. It's all public domain. I get all my shit from the Department of Defense, so please don't sue me.
Speaking of bridges, I got a good story for you. So
Okay.
before that first deployment to Riyadh, when I'm, place where I can drive a rental car wherever I want, see the monkeys. But we had our O6, our Joint Forces Air Component Commander. He said, we're getting a lot of reports from this one bridge up in Iraq, and they're having issues because they know it's rigged with explosives, but they don't want to go over it, but yet it's still one of the main routes that they need to take. And so it's kind of...
Whereabout?
I don't remember. It's somewhere in central Iraq, somewhere.
So Baghdad is almost center. So I would not be surprised if it was... Oh. Okay, so...
But this was 95.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of all the... Because there's not many bridges in Iraq. Or at least not whenever I was there. We may have taken out a bunch, but the ones that I know that we pretty much always had to take, it was Tampa and Jackson and Irish. Irish was the airport road between the city of Baghdad and the Baghdad airport. I actually have a story tied to this shit, but that Route Irish at one point in time was known as the deadliest road in the world, and we took that bitch 2 times a week, sometimes, yeah, about 2 times a week. If it's that one, I think I may have been on the.
Is
the
it
road
tall
trip.
enough to fly an airplane underneath?
Yes.
Okay.
There's not many of those either.
So the story, to tie through, the O6 is like, I need a picture, I need to, verify, because the ground guys, they don't want to go over it. They're scared. They're not scared, but they just don't want to get their vehicles blown up or whatever.
Well, if it's the bridge, if they blew it up, it doesn't matter how deep your convoy is. It's a long, tall bridge.
So the British major that I was working with, we're in collections. So that meant we took every requirement for intelligence, and we would take it, process it, and then we would task certain units to be like, hey, can you get this for us? Can you get this for us? And so this British major, he's like, we can do it. And, my Tornadoes...
Brits don't give a fuck.
Yeah. My Tornadoes can do it. They can take a picture of that bridge. And the colonel's like, well, I don't know. It's, the hard deck was like 2,500 feet, which means airplanes can't fly below that. And he's like, but we need to verify that. Do we have any helicopters, anybody, on the ground, any force recon, Marines, Green Berets, anybody that can take pictures? And we're like, there's nobody in the area that could do it. And the British major's like, just give me a couple days. I'll get you a picture. Colonel said, okay, no problem. A couple days pass. British major's like, here, I sent you a file, print out this picture, and we'll give it to the colonel. I'm like, okay. Print it out, look at it. It's a picture of the underside of the bridge.
Knew it.
So British Tornado, his buddies, British Tornadoes, flew inverted under the bridge and took pictures of that.
So that may sound dope as shit, but what's
dangerous as hell.
Yeah. If it's the bridge I'm thinking of, because there's not many. Like if you think big bridges in, say, a major urban hub, whether it's, I don't know if New York has tall bridges. I know like out in Texas they do, Seattle they do. Baghdad also has bridges like that. Like they have architects. There's one, I can't remember exactly
Is
what
it
road
as tall as like the Sunshine Skyway Bridge here in Tampa?
Yeah, it wasn't like as narrow, like going
Right.
up. But it was, but yeah, you kind of work your way up, and you stay on this bridge a while. Like, so that I'm glad you mentioned that, because the story I was going to tell is, if it's that bridge, there's only two bridges that I ever crossed in Iraq, and I've been up that bitch from Mosul, like almost to uh, was that Iran? I've been all the way over to like almost Jordan. I've been all the way down to Kuwait. Not so much Saudi Arabia. I've been all over that bitch. There was only two places that I know that had a bridge that tall that a jet could fly under, and they're both by Baghdad. We were actually leaving Balad, heading south, and I think I've told you this story before, where the MRAP came up and stopped us. We were supposed to roll out before them, but we were taking too long. Something about radio fills or some shit. They stopped us, and their convoy went out. I didn't know this, but in that MRAP was my cousin. His name was Sergeant Slaughter. I shit you not, that was his name. That was his unit. Turns out, I thought he was in the MRAP later, but it turned out he wasn't. He ended up getting sent home early for something. But that MRAP that cut us off, we were going over that same bridge, right by Tampa, and they got hit with an EFP. An EFP is an explosive form projectile. It's usually like a copper or a tin disc that it's an explosive, goes off behind it, and it kind of forms this projectile, hence the name, and it goes through our armor. Everybody in that MRAP died but one guy, and I thought it was my cousin, because my stepdad let me know, like, hey, yeah, that was like your cousin's unit, my Uncle Dana's son. That was supposed to be our gun truck on that damn bridge. We had a helicopter escort. I couldn't tell you what helicopter it was because we rode at night, and you're not going to see a black helicopter in the black of night because we didn't all have like night vision goggles and shit. And I just watched this. We were getting ready to go on the bridge. I was in the maintenance truck. I was one of the last vehicles. I was also one of the few with two convoys on this bridge. I was one of the few people that was not actually on the bridge yet. Like, that's how long the bridge was. And I just watched this field to the right of us just get lit up. Like that, I don't know if it was a Black Hawk or Apache, whatever we were using at the time, just ended up tracing, like shooting a bunch of tracing rounds all over this damn field. So whoever blew it up was probably trying to escape through that damn field.
We call them squirters.
Squitters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime we see...
That's not the term I'm familiar with the military.
That's what we call them. If we saw it on Predator video and we're watching something and we throw a couple Hellfires or a couple GBUs at them, guided bombs, then any blob that came out of the building, we're like, "Ooh, that's a squirter. Let's call it. All right, let's get that dude."
So not only are we probably being watched by the CIA, FBI, NSA, but we're also probably going to get flagged for pornographic content for mentioning squirters.
But that's just what we call them because they squirted out of the building.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can't say that was military terms. Like, so we have special jumper cables for vehicle to vehicle, where we slave the vehicles together. We called them slave cables. It's like, it's not your typical jumper cables with the red and the black for positive and ground. No, it's like a circular L-shaped thing, and the battery box would go down to this plug on the vehicle, and you'd have to slide this cable on and then slave it to another vehicle.
Hand me the sleeve. Fling it.
Oh, you want... Yeah! Let's do it!
I get something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably cut it at around an hour.
Yeah.
And then do the next... I want to like stop it and restart it because editing this, I just want to put stuff up. I want the people to see like all the bullshit we do and all the fun stuff. They may find our conversations boring, or there's going to be people that find it exciting. Doesn't matter to me. I'm here to just share the stories. Hence the name Tales from the Post. That, and I also want a reason to get inebriated.
So another fun thing, I went to Turkey. Let's see.
Would you like lime?
No, thank you. 1999. So that was
Turkey, that's Northern Watch.
Northern Watch. So I was still in like my 20s, young 20s.
And you've lived a lifetime enough for 3 people at that point.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean,
but
it
was my 4th deployment.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is after Kobar Towers.
After Kobar, after Korea, I spent a year in Korea for that. So this was right after that. I worked nights, so I worked by myself. I mean, there's other analysts doing different things, but I was doing all the targeting for upcoming missions for different days and verifying what like, because we'd get a lot of targets and stuff from higher headquarters, and it'd just be like, let me verify that, and we always verified it for our squadrons.
Yeah, because following orders is not a way to get out of trouble. I think the Nuremberg trials proved that pretty extensively.
It was just our 06 at the time was always like, I need you to verify everything that comes through. Make sure it's still a viable target. Make sure, because there's always a delay when we're planning at the, upper headquarters to when it actually gets to the units. There's could be a couple days delay. So
it's just smart.
So we got to verify. So my colonel, he would fly missions up in northern Iraq for Northern Watch, and he kept getting pinged at by an S-60 or a 57 millimeter anti-aircraft gun on the ground.
Okay, what was he flying?
F-16s.
F-16s. Okay.
So he'd see the poof off, black smoke off to the side, or always getting shot at every time he was going through.
Well, AA guns, it's not like, we see something, we shoot it, and then it blows up. It's a lot of anti-aircraft, like artillery. They'll shoot it off, and it's like a timed detonation. So they'll try to shoot in front, and then it doesn't actually hit anything. It just kind of explodes on its own.
But then there's shrapnel that comes off of that can go through, the paper thin, panels on jets and kind of mess them up.
Yeah, not everything is like direct kinetic contact. It's not like, okay, I hit you with a bomb and the bomb blows up. No, it's I dropped the bomb in your neighbor's house and the shrapnel got you.
But for a couple of weeks, this one just kept lighting him up. And he comes back and he's like, I'm going to make it my personal mission to destroy this thing because I'm getting tired of it. Find it. And I'm in the briefing and I'm like, oh, I guess that's kind of my job. Okay, I'll find it. I'll help you find it.
I just got John Wick going through my head. It's like he's a man of commitment and sheer fucking will.
But there's a enlisted British guy that was an imagery interpreter, so they looked at satellite imagery, aircraft photographs, all that. And me and him started talking, and I gave him the coordinates of generally about a 20-mile area of where.
20-mile square?
Circle. Usually a circle with the center dot, and it could be anywhere around that.
20 miles, that's still a lot of land to cover, even on an F-16.
Well, but he's, he was looking, oh, hey, I'm right here, general area. Because when you look,
and those things move too, right? They're like a trailer.
Yeah. So he's like, just find it. The British guy's like, all right, yeah, I'll look at imagery. I'll try and find it. But it was the week after he asked us to do it. It was raining. There was a lot of heavy cloud cover. So
all satellite imagery, you're not going to see shit. You're just going to see fuzzy stuff, right?
In tactical, aircraft flying over, taking pictures. You might get a spot here and there open, but it was not a lot. One day, he runs over to our spot. The British guy, he's like, boom, I got the picture, I got the coordinates, it's right there. You should be there, based off of previous intel, you should still be there. I'm like, all right, thanks, dude, I owe you a beer later.
Fucking camera dying, editing bullshit. Where were we at?
So the British enlisted guy, he brings me the picture. He's like, "Oh, I got it. There's a small hole in the clouds. It's an S-60 right there. That's the one he's looking for.
And everything else is fuzzy.
It's all white.
It's like God's like, hey, fuck this dude in particular. Like this is it.
So I'm like, all right, got it. I owe you a beer later because we can drink in Turkey, not in Saudi Arabia.
I can drink it all during deployment.
And then, so I take it to the colonel. Colonel's like, you found it? And I'm like, well, I didn't find it. British enlisted guy, he found it. He's like, all right, I'm going to take it up tomorrow. We're going to knock the crap out of this dude. Like, okay. Next day.
How hard was he? Did you confirm the erection?
No.
Because I bet you that dude had one because he's fixing to go make that dude's.
So the next day, he's on mission, flies into northern Iraq, drops bombs on his targets, lights up this S-60. He comes back. We're like, sir, did you hit your targets? He's like, all of my targets. And I'm like, all right, did you hit the S-60? He's like, yep.
He's playing Ace Combat and doing side quests.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I lit him up enough to where they have to replace the gun in my jet. And I'm like,
what the fuck?
I'm like, holy crap, dude, what'd you do? And he's like, I emptied the magazine on one pull on him. And we're like, okay, that's a lot of bullets.
Hold on, one pull? Like, so he just never laid off the trigger.
That's 240 some rounds.
How fast does it go a minute?
Well, like 30 or, yeah, but there's like, I don't know, but it's a lot.
It's like he had to be focusing minutes on this guy. Like, not only was he just destroying the equipment, the guy, but he was also burying him with the rounds.
Everything around it. But, so, he got his target. I helped him out. After I left his office, I called up maintenance real quick, because I had a couple buddies there that I drank with. And I'm like, hey, Colonel's jet, the JFAX jet? He's like, yeah, what? And I'm like, did he melt the barrels on that sucker? And he's like, yeah, we actually have to ground the thing because we got to order in a whole new gun system to put into that. Because an F-16 has the 30 millimeter and it's kind of like a Gatling gun.
Yeah, Gatling cannon.
He warped, bent every barrel.
Everything looking like a candy cane.
It's probably like, kind of like a Twizzler. So yeah, there's some good experiences I had.
I mean, each one of those rounds is what? They're like close to $2, a little over that. And he emptied out thousands of them. That dude probably
200. It's like 240 some bullets is in a magazine for when the jet goes up. That's all they have. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they carried like $2,000 worth, or like $2,000 worth of rounds.
It's only like 200.
I was about to say that dude pissed away his entire paycheck getting back that entire anti-aircraft gun.
But being in the Air Force, there's always opportunities for shenanigans, for boondoggles.
Army too.
I did a temporary duty at TDY to Fort Walton Beach, where they put me up in a hotel right on the beach. I walk out the back door of the room, and there's the beach right there, water, everything. And all I had to do for 2 weeks was go into work at 8 o'clock in the morning, get a computer disk from this guy's desk, pick it up, put it in my computer, load it, send a file to another base.
Yep.
I call, hey, did you get the file? Yep, I got the file. All right, we'll see you later. I'll see you at 5 o'clock. All right. Click. Retrieve the disk, delete what I did, walk out, go hit the beach, go eat, whatever, come back at 5 o'clock.
During your deployment?
No, this was a TDY.
Oh, okay.
But for 2 weeks, because all the messages, all the files got transferred okay, I got an Air Force Achievement Medal for that one. So there's buffoonery.
So your deployments, so my deployments were completely different because I'm actually there.
Yeah, you're in country getting shot.
Well, I didn't get shot. I'm not a Purple Heart recipient, but getting shot at, like, whenever I was there, they had already factioned out, like, I was an 88 Mike. For those that don't know, 88 Mike was truck driver. So they used to put sandbags and stuff in the floor to help with the explosions. It didn't help, but it gave you peace of mind. Well, whenever I got there, they had already put on the plates, and we were actually on the second generation. They were factoring out the old SpongeBob stuff, which weren't as safe, but they were way more comfortable. Like, there was a lot of room inside compared to the new ones where they kind of put armor on the outside and the inside, so it constricted your cab room. But like the highlights of my stuff was, I mean, not getting shot at was nice. We'd always get shot at by Balad. Route Irish was a fucking nightmare, and I hated that road a lot. But like the highlight of my deployments was literally poo jokes. Like I had a buddy. We were stopped on MSR Tampa because we do what's called a splash, and that's also a time when people go and piss or shit on the side of the road or in the road and mark it with a glow stick, and that's always a giggle for everybody that is past that, him and the convoy. Well, we had one guy, I won't say his name out of protection purposes, but it started with a W, so we will call him Specialist W because that was his rank at the time. He thought it would be funny to not only take a shit, but go inside someone's rim of their semi. So he went and pooed in this rim of the semi, and cylindrical force would press it into the rim as we're driving. And in the military, whenever we'd come back to our home area, we always had to take them to a wash rack, and they had ramps and stuff, and it's just high pressure hoses where we'd spray the dust and stuff off of our vehicles and clean out all the trash and stuff. Well, the guy that drove the truck that Specialist W pooed in was cleaning his truck, and he noticed this brown ring that wasn't coming off of his rim. So he went and stuck his finger in it and was moving it around, not knowing that it was Specialist W's shit that he took, I don't know, like 2 days prior outside of Baghdad. So yeah, that's my interesting story. Not barrels melting on a jet. No, it's someone taking a shit in someone else's rim.
I would say one of my best assignments was we were at Eielson Air Force Base for my last duty assignment before I retired. That's up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
I was just about to say Alaska, right?
Actually, it's 20 miles south of Fairbanks, out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, yeah, there's not really shit in northern Alaska, right? Everything's like kind of in the southwest by Anchorage.
But Fairbanks is right in the middle of Alaska. Almost.
Oh, is it?
Yep. It's about 3 hour. No, actually, it's like 6 hours from Anchorage. So if you want to go to Anchorage, it's like a 6-7 hour drive through wilderness and porcupines. Did you know there's porcupines in Alaska? I didn't know that, but there are.
Honestly, I have no idea where porcupines live. You could have told me they live in the middle of Saudi Arabia in caves. I'd be like, okay, that's fucking weird, but I guess.
The roads in Alaska are interesting because of permafrost. The concrete gets heaved up and depressed in different sections.
So you get the opposite of potholes. You get like...
It's just it's kind of like being on a roller coaster sometimes. But you look ahead, and if they just repaved the road and they painted it, and then after the season, you go back and you see how the permafrost kind of moved the asphalt and the concrete. And you look down, as you're driving along, you're looking down and you're seeing the yellow lines. It looked like a kid drew them. Because it'd be like squiggle holes all the way down, up and down. Oh, yeah, it was hilarious.
What did you do in Alaska? So there's not really shit there.
So Alaska has, at least, I was at the Combat Training Squadron, or the CTS.
All right.
And we did Red Flag Alaska. There's 2 red flags in the United States. There's one in Vegas.
Is that like a roller coaster thing, like Six Flags?
No. It's a combat training exercise.
Okay.
So way back in Vietnam, a lot of pilots were getting killed within their first 10 sorties.
Oh, yeah.
Or their first 10 flights.
Well, I know, like, Vietnam, like, the 2 highest death MOSs was, like, pilot and door gunner. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And back in Vietnam, we didn't have, like, super fast shit. It was all, like, moving low and slow. I mean, the A-10 Warthog, for y'all don't know, it's a gun with wings. That came out during Vietnam, right?
I think it was later than that.
Was it? Would you say, Micah?
Late 70s.
Yeah.
Late.
late
Oh, so it
70s.
was after Vietnam.
And there's jets capable of doing Mach 2.
Yeah. I mean, you had
But
F4.
Mach 2 ain't shit compared to the stuff we got now. We got Mach 9. Like, we're worried about people passing out while flying shit now.
But you had F4s. You had, I mean,
F-105s.
F-105s, 101s.
I have no
some
idea.
of that stuff.
I was a
out
truck
there, so-
driver. I know turbos and like glow plugs, how to change oil. I don't know like these planes that's like I'm going to delete an enemy from 2 miles away.
So up in Alaska, this large force exercise, they created it. They first called it Cope Thunder, and it was up in Alaska.
Cope or Coke?
Cope, C-O-P-E.
Okay.
Cope Thunder. And then
I was about to say Coke, and you're in an all-white, snowy area.
It was to give brand new pilots, fighter pilots mainly, their first 10 combat sorties in a controlled environment. So they weren't, they're not going to die, but they're getting lit up by enemy radar. They're getting, 1-versus-1 dogfighting with what they call aggressors. So American jets, American pilots playing the enemy, coming at them.
Kind of like Top Gun 2, where Maverick was teaching his...
Sure, even like in Top Gun, where the instructors are flying against the students and stuff. It's that. But this is a large force exercise, so there's 250 jets up in the air at one time.
Damn, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot. So that's why we only had them 4 times a year.
Oh.
And it was 2 weeks exercise. The one down in Vegas, that one is the same type of exercise, but it's more condensed because they have less of a flying area.
In Vegas?
In Vegas. That they have a less flying area that they could do. In Alaska, we had 4 million acres.
Oh yeah,
that we could
Alaska's
fly over.
fucking huge. Like if you took Alaska and put it on the continental U.S., it's like half the U.S.
So from Fairbanks all the way to the Canadian border, from about a third of the way up to the top, all the way to the bottom of Alaska, that was our range. We could fly over that the whole thing. 4 million acres. And so they had, F-16s. We would have F-15 Cs and Es. So the Es are the bomb droppers. The E's or the C's are the air superiority. They're the ones going up against other jets. We had C-130s, B-52s, B-1s, B-2s came up. I mean, all different platforms. Intel platforms came up, like AWACS, which is air controllers for the whole airspace, where they're controlling, go get this jet, go get this. There's a bandit here, there's a bandit there. Bandit's an enemy aircraft.
Yeah.
So we had those guys, and it was a large force exercise. Cool thing, I was the only targeteer. So the only one that knew about targets, how to prepare air tasking orders, which is the Air Force's way of saying, okay, you're going to go after this target. You're going to go after this target. This 4-ship called, Attaboy 2 is going to go after this and this and this. And it's a paper copy of basically what their mission is for that day.
So you picked out all like the bombing locations,
Yep.
The attack targets, even if you're
All
not
that.
bombing them.
And so I pull all that stuff together, put it into a document, and then we would release it to the players.
You're talking like it's a video game. Like, hey, take these millions of dollars worth of aircrafts and go destroy this part of Alaska.
Well, most of it was a no-drop area, because you still had people living out in the forests of Alaska and the area. So it was
I've seen Alaskan bush people.
So it was no drop, but there was 2 live drop areas that they could drop on. And most of the targets out there were made out of plywood. As the civil engineers would make like a giant airplane or a giant airport or whatever, and they would live drop there. Fun part of my job, exercise is over. All the intel participants that came from different squadrons, I could take them out on the range and be like, here, this is what an S-60 looks like, because we had actual Russian equipment on the range. From SA-2s to SA-10s.
Isn't that kind of weird? Like, all these other nations buy our hand-me-down shit to use, and we get theirs to blow the fuck up.
No, none of those we could. So we didn't blow those up because anything that, so like a lot of the surface air missiles have, the systems have a radar on it so that they can track the aircraft and fire the missile towards it. Being able for a pilot to be lit up by an authentic Russian radar, that's a really good training for them. Instead of, oh, that's a simulated one or whatever.
Yeah, but is it up to date stuff? Because I can't imagine all these foreign
Absolutely.
nations be like, oh, here's the system we're using.
No. We so before Ukraine, became what it is today, we would buy a lot of equipment from the Ukraine because they were friendly with us, and so that's how we got our SA-10, our 2s, 3s, 6s, and 8s that we had out there. They were all bought from the Ukraine and other companies, however we acquired them. But to be able to be lit up by that real signature, real radar signature is invaluable for them. But as Intel folks, we learn about all this equipment in tech school. We get to see pictures, we see Predator video, we see all this, but we never see it live in person. So I would take them out into the range, go 30 miles north of base, and let them walk all over an SA-8 or an SA-6. They, get up on the missiles, and now it's just static, the main truck except for the radars. So they, I had an airman plank on top of an SA-8.
I remember planking back, and I didn't plank. I was aware of planking back in the day. I was never on that fad or that bandwagon.
But I worked with Army Green Berets. I worked because Special Forces guys would come in and want to do the ground portion of the exercise and kind of play Op 4,
Op 4 was always fun.
So, but they would come in and be like, what areas can we play in? What areas can we stay out of? What are we going to see? At Green Berets, we had Force Recon from the Marines come up. We had Navy SEALs come up. We had German Special Forces come in.
So you were training other nations' special forces.
Well, they would come in and kind of get a lay of the land. And then they'd be like, we can't tell you what we're doing, but this is where we're going to be operating. Make sure that nobody's going to be dropping.
Otherwise, it's going to be like another World War incident. Yeah. It's like, oh, shit.
But it was cool just to interact with them, Because from what I remember, most of those special ops guys, super chill. They're not high anxiety or whatever. At least the ones I worked with, they were just like,
I mean, let's
go get a beer. We're good,
I've dealt with the Rangers. I've dealt with the Germans too. So like, we were on like our compound and the places we went to, it was all joint task force stuff. So we dealt with like the Brits, we dealt with the Germans, the Australians. The Australians were by far my favorite. They were some fucking cool dudes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've dealt with all those too. I've dealt with Rangers, like going through like WLC or PLDC. I forget. I don't know what they named it now. It's probably changed. But it's like the training course right before BNOC for the Army. Whenever you're getting ready to become an NCO or you're like an E5 and you are an NCO, you just have to go through the class. And yeah, they're pretty cool, but I mean, it's all based on the individual too. You'll have some assholes. You'll have some fucking laid back dudes. As a matter of fact, when I was going through WLC, this is right after they changed it from PLDC. We had a class with some Rangers, and one dude had a huge scar on his face. Like it was the side of his face was fucked up. And what the story that he told us was that he was in a firefight, and he got shot in the opposite cheek, and it was his scar and everything was literally the exit wound.
Dang.
And he got shot in the face, like in the fucking face.
Yeah.
And he was telling us, he goes, I didn't drop or anything. He said, I just picked up my gun and kept shooting because he didn't want to be called a pussy. So that was his motivating factor. It was not, I just got shot. It's perfectly valid for me to lay down and cry like a little bitch.
That's pretty hardcore.
Oh, yeah. He was a Ranger. So it's like He picked up his gun and kept fighting. And then after everything was over, his buddy took a picture of him while they were putting him on a skid, like a stretcher, kind of for the military.
Yeah.
They took a picture of him, and he keeps that bitch in his wallet, and he was showing it to us. But yeah, I mean, everybody's built different.
So yeah, that's a few of my stories, Shaggy.
I may have you on again.
That's fine.
Because I know he brought a list, and this man's amount of fuckery that he has won achievements for, all the service locations. I know some stories that he shared that he hasn't shared that are fucking hilarious. I mean, he's got 20 years in. If we went over everything,
It would take
like
a while.
we'd be here days, bro. But I mean, yeah, we'll cut it. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so this is the pilot episode. I'll probably have him back at a later episode. I don't know. It may be as early as 5, depending on his schedule. We may push it back to 10 or whatnot. But I got some other guests that's coming on. One of them was a Vietnam vet that was shot down 3 times, twice in the same day. He was a scout. He was also a pilot. I think he was even a door gunner during Vietnam, like that we mentioned earlier. And I want to be able to get him on. So, subscribe. Stay tuned. Later.